Our guy Mike Renner plugged in with the boots on the ground in Mobile for that Senior Bowl. And Mike, you've been around all this team personnel in the NFL. How much stock do you think they truly put into what they're seeing this week here during Senior Bowl week to help shape how the draft will then go down?
It's a case-by-case basis, how much stock. It can be a lot. It can be very little. If you're playing running back here where, you're not getting tackled, you're not, getting hit and having to break tackles the way you would on your collegiate football field, they're not going to put much stock in that position. But guys like the offensive lineman, like Gray Zabel, who's playing at North Dakota State, so he's never faced like an NFL caliber defensive lineman, and then he played tackle there, and now he's getting asked to play guard center where he's going to play in the NFL. A lot of guys are looking at him to see how he's going to fare on the interior in a different position. So it can be very minimal or it can be a lot depending on your situation. Guys like Nick Martin from Oklahoma State got hurt early on this season, so he barely played. He's here now ready to prove his draft stock. So it can be very beneficial, and NFL evaluators definitely do put a lot of stock into those guys.
Let's look at the QB position because, of course, that's what brings in all the money and all the attention. As a collective, the group of QBs that are there in Mobile, we'll pull it up to show who's there. Some names that, of course, folks know: Dylan Gabriel, Riley Leonard, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart. You see this group of 6 QBs right here, and I'm just wondering, like, when you maybe extrapolate this to the entire class of the QBs that are eligible to be drafted this year, does it just show that it's not really top tier like we've seen in other years?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to say. And compare it to last year where you had Michael Penix and Bo Nix, 2 guys who went in the top 15. That ain't going to happen this year at the Senior Bowl. I'd be surprised if truly any of these guys ended up going the first round. But I do think they are still intriguing prospects. A couple names I'll mention there. Jalen Milroe, just because he's maybe the best athlete here, and he's playing at the quarterback position, and measured in with 8 3/4-inch hands. So that's going to be one of the talks of him is with that hand size, can his fumble issues go away at the NFL level? Can his accuracy issues be improved? But the man can absolutely fly. So I think he could help himself with a good week here. And then Jackson Dart's the one who could probably help himself the most, because if you watch Ole Miss's offense and Lane Kiffin, what they do there, it's incredibly simplistic. It is not what he's going to be doing in the NFL. So full field reads, things of that nature, he's going to have to do here that he really never did at Ole Miss. So if he does very well, and he did on day one of the practices, he's talented enough and performed well enough that he could actually make his way into that back end of the first round conversation with a really, really big week. So yeah, it's a weak quarterback class, but it doesn't mean there's no talent whatsoever. There are still guys who are going to intrigue, whether it's late day 1, mid-day 2 into day 3.
Yeah, after Shedeur and Cam, it gets a little bit murky, not knowing what's going to all play out. Let's make the move over to defense and talk a little bit about Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, because I have to say he had a quote that I absolutely love, and we have to pull it up so everybody can see it, because he said while talking to the folks, if I was a GM, I would take me with the highest pick you've got. You don't want to miss this. Talk about confidence just oozing out. How do you feel about his game when you look at Stewart? Can he back this up?
It wasn't just that. In the one-on-ones on the field yesterday, he told the offensive tackle, I'm going to run through your face. I think he had an expletive in there that I can't say. And then he ran through his face. So a guy that has that kind of confidence is a guy I'm going to go to bat for. But he's one I've been hawking all week because on tape, his production just isn't there. The guy's a freak of nature. I mean, 6'5", 280 plus. He's going to blow up the combine, going to be the talk of that week in Indy. But he had only 1.5 sacks last year as a defensive end. He had only 14 solo tackles on 521 snaps. So the production, the impact doesn't quite match the physical tools yet. But if you got that kind of attitude, and if he's willing to work at it, that guy could be a darn good player at the NFL level.
You can't be like all yap sometimes. You got to be able to back it up with the play as well. Walk it like you talk it, as the kids say. You mentioned measurables, and I want to talk about Kentucky's Deion Walker, because the way that he's popping out on that stat sheet, a defensive tackle who's 6'7", 340 pounds. Is he a guy that we should know just off of measurables, because maybe the production at Kentucky doesn't scream like a day 1 pick?
Well, he's the tallest defensive tackle in modern NFL history since they started collecting those measurables at the Combine in 2000. And he's only 20 years old. The guy can't even drink legally yet, and he's already here at the Senior Bowl dominating some of these reps. So the NFL is an athlete-driven league, a freak-driven league. It's a genetically driven league. And to have a guy that is that big, that can move the way he does, and has been that productive, especially early on in his career, he had 51 pressures as a sophomore at Kentucky. Now, it's difficult at 6'7" to play defensive line on the interior because you're getting forklifted. It's hard to get leverage. So I do think it's a little bit of an odd fit, and someone's going to have to come up with a role for him. And maybe even offensive tackle is going to be his ultimate role, because that's what most offensive tackles look like, not defensive tackles. But again, when you have what he does and the movement skills he does at that size, someone's going to get really intrigued, because the sky really is the limit for what this guy could be at the next level.
Yeah, to figure someone's going to think, hey, let's just get him in our building and we will make it do from there and absolutely make it work. Mike Renner, thank you so much. All the coverage you're providing out there in Mobile for that Senior Bowl game coming up on Saturday. And of course, Mike, part of the dynamic duo with Kyle Long, who put on Pushing the Pile, covering the NFL every single day of the week. Tap in with them, like, subscribe, get that football talk in your veins.